you want to see how to do a bad LS swap, this is one of them. What's going on, folks? Luis over at Creative Street Designs out here in a wonderful and sunny Beaumont, Texas. As you can see, there's the front door. The video you're going to see is going to be really interesting because that is a OBS Chevy Silverado that came to my shop that needed some saving. And when you see this video, you're going to understand why it needed some saving. Let me just say, just because you go someplace to buy something and people say that it's all running well, doesn't really mean that. Make sure you check stuff out because stuff like this can happen to you. You really do want to make sure that you get somebody to watch this stuff, take a look at it for you. Make sure it's all working right, because just because someone says it runs okay doesn't mean it does. And that ought to be an indication of what you're about to see. So check it out. Make sure you watch the video. If you like what you see, make sure you like, favorite, subscribe, send this to your friends, hit the bell notification, and without further ado, let's get into it. Well, this one's going to be a series for sure. This is a very, very clean OBS Chevy. And as you can see, it was sold to my customer. Well, my customer paid a lot of money for it. I mean, really nice paint. Interior's clean. I'll show you that in a minute, but it had an LS swap. And when he got it, he barely was able to drive it off the trailer and got it to me. Well, it's got a factory computer, but the one thing you notice it's missing is it doesn't have a mass air sensor. I did some digging, lifted off the cover, and what do I see? Underneath everything is the mass airflow sensor wiring, all just laying here. I also see that they oversprayed back there. So they basically just threw this LS swap in there last minute. And if you start pulling the wiring more and more, you start to see that the O2 sensor wiring is just sitting here. Yes, folks, you are correct. The O2 sensors are not connected. They're just laying there. So what we're gonna end up doing is we're gonna end up pulling all of this factory wiring out of here. We're going back in with a Terminator X Max, and we're going to make this thing work perfect. And yes, before people ask, he did buy it like this. So whoever sold it thought it made perfect sense to sell a vehicle to a person that literally was undrivable and was possibly unsafe, because that is a fire hazard waiting to happen. Not gonna say it's criminal, but I wouldn't have done this. Yeah, folks, if you want to see how to do a bad LS swap, this is one of them. So what did they do? Instead of getting a proper radiator, they took a Silverado 99 through 06 radiator, strapped a fan onto it, just strapped a fan to it, didn't put a shroud or anything, made some sort of just BS top cover for it, used this here, shoved that into there, and then just cut the ears off of it. I mean, really, on a truck this nice, and this is what you're gonna do? Let's not even talk about the wonderful fuel line job that they did here. Yes, your eyes don't deceive you. They just took steel braided line and shoved it onto the return line. I mean, that's supposed to be okay. Yeah, this was a fire hazard. I didn't want to show this to the customer while they were here because I didn't want them to freak out, but I told them the moment this vehicle got here, it is not leaving. And I will put in extra time just to get it fixed and working quickly so I can get it back to them. This is why I say, folks, when you buy a car, you need to get an inspection. So apparently they welded in the frame there. And again, I'm no expert, but that doesn't look good. Definitely does not look good on this notch at all. I mean, the welding on the side seems kind of all right, but there's no bump stops in here. Both sides kind of look like that. I mean, just overlapping metal and stuff like that. But yeah, we'll get this all fixed eventually. Especially considering that this truck has no e-brakes. This is showing you what they did to get the fuel lines hooked up in this thing. They ran a braided line right off of this up to the front, and then they ran a braided line back to the return line. So we're gonna get rid of all of that. We're gonna drop the tank, and we're gonna connect straight to it, and we're gonna run a fuel pressure regulator and filter assembly from a Corvette right there and make everything all nice and neat. Man, such a nice truck, cutting down an old harness, and yeah, see that? pushed all the way in. And for all of the internet keyboard warriors and all of those folks that are going to go, there's no way this LS would have ran if all of that wiring wasn't connected. It needs to have everything connected for it to run. Well, just to show y'all. Shout out to the fat electrician. Yes, folks, this gets better. Yeah, beautifully painted truck. Really crappy engine. Looks like they just took this motor straight out of a wrecked Tahoe and just dropped it in here. I mean, come on, guys. You could have at least cleaned this. I mean, the intake had to be off when you put the motor in. Come on, guys. Now, there's zero issue with using factory intakes, but if you're gonna use an AN fitting here, you could have used another AN fitting on the return line so then you wouldn't have to have an issue of the thing blowing off. And if you notice, the line wasn't pushed on the whole way. So if they were gonna put a line on, they could have shoved it over this point, used a clamp to hold it against it. What was gonna happen? With fuel pressure, it would have probably blown the line off. And yes, the return might be somewhere close to 40, 50 PSI. And then obviously they had this thing break, so they reduced it with this instead of getting the proper vacuum fitting. And they painted the truck with this in the car and never put the clamp on. And then this was just sitting there. Again, I mean, really? This is how lazy we are? Yes, folks, your eyes do not deceive you. There is a water pump bolt missing. And they put a new water pump with an old tensioner that's bad. I mean, look at this. Doesn't spin. With probably an old thermostat. And then instead of running the cooling hoses from the throttle body over to the radiator, because they were using a Silverado radiator, what did they do in their infinite wisdom? Yeah, that's right. They tapped the top of the water pump. So this is bringing laziness to a whole nother level. This is the gift that keeps on giving. Look at how much rust is down there. Yeah, I mean, you painted the truck, you put the motor in the truck, but you couldn't take the time to put fresh knock sensors when these are like 50 bucks for a pair. If you were taking bets that the plugs in this thing look like haggard crap, you were pretty much right. This is the best looking one out of all of them. They were on so tight, it was like King Kong put these damn things on. So, well, let's put some fresh plugs in this thing. Let's get it up and working. This is a reason why some LS swaps are literally just jokes. Somebody took a factory LS truck radiator, just strapped a fan to it, and put it in this thing. Well, we're going back in with a very good Champion radiator that's cross flow, and we also have a shroud with two, not one, but two fans going in this thing. And a Holley Terminator X. Shout out to the good folks over at Champion Cooling for getting this double pass radiator for this OBS swap here. So we've got a set of 14-inch fans on there, got a nice solid shroud, nice aluminum radiator, everything's all ready to go, even has a steam port built into it. Yeah, this thing's gonna absolutely do the job. So if you're looking for a decent radiator at an affordable price, the folks over at Champion Cooling, I'm sure somebody I would definitely give a consideration to. Well, if y'all remember, this bolt was missing in the original water pump, so I went and bought a new one that's not tapped because we don't need to, because we're running the hoses the way we're going to need to. Well, the reason why that bolt was missing is because they probably didn't have a handy little tap here. If you folks are ever wondering what size it is, it's 8mm by 125 pitch, and you get one of these, run it in there, pull it back out. You can use a little bit of WD-40 or PB Blaster, whatever you like. Make sure you clean out the shavings, clean out the dirt, and you run a bolt right back in it. So again, little $5.99 part. I guess prevented people from putting a bolt back in the water pump. Yeah, I mean, I keep complaining, and I know people tell me, just fix the damn thing, but if I don't show y'all the kind of craziness that I see, how can you ever learn or prevent it from happening on your end? The people that had this car did not use a regular LS 2-pin coolant temp sensor. They used a 3-pin, which was basically screwed in by hand and had a broken gasket on it as well. And this is a 3-pin. You use these on F-bodies and very early 99s. There's no sense in using it in these because this was actually used to be able to control AC in the F-bodies. But, I mean, in these things, the factory computer didn't control the AC anyway. So, needless to say, we put the right one in there. We've got everything all wired up. About time to send it home. Well, starting to look like a car. Most of the Terminator X wiring is all put together. It's going to go all over there. Got this guy on. We get the water pump on, put the radiator and the fans in. Well, we might be ready to start this thing up. One of the things that a lot of people overlook and don't do on a Holly, which is not necessarily required, but I mean, it's kind of required if you ask me, is adding this fuel pressure sensor. So this allows the computer to see what fuel pressure is. It's not going to make adjustments off of it, but I can log fuel pressure and be able to see if there's anything wrong. Also, I can set the computer for proper fuel pressure in it, so its tables are correct versus the injectors. But a lot of people leave that off. Well, valve covers are on. Had to put a little bit of green on it. Plug wires are in. Shout out to O'Reilly's for the auto parts. That's where we got the plugs, the wires, the gaskets, the 145 amp alternator, the water pump, the thermostat, the belt tensioner, the belt, and all the little stuff that we need. Most of the wiring is done. Still have to put the throttle body on it. Still got to make an intake. That's going to go this way. Still have to put the radiator in that hole. And then it's do the fuel system underneath and fire the sucker up. So I think tomorrow Miss Envy might start up and roll out of here. So we pulled the tank out of this thing. I'm going to pull the pump and make sure that it's got a pump that is suitable for an LS engine. But one of the things that I did want to do was modify this stuff so it wasn't running through the factory fuel lines. Well, if you look it up, Earls and a bunch of companies make these slick TBI to AN fittings. So we're just going to stick these guys in here, make new AN lines to go out to my Corvette fuel filter, which is going to act as my fuel pressure regulator. That's going to work perfectly fine with the Holly. One of my astute followers sent me a comment and said, hey, this return line that was on this thing, that was cut off on this end over here, might be plumbing line. Well, I look at it, toilet feed line. Well, yeah, it's about right. So yes, they used household plumbing for the return line. So there goes all of the old fuel line out of there. Thank goodness we're putting some good stuff in. And just like that, fuel lines are in. Fuel system is done. I just got to run the line up to the front. Put a little bracket here to hold these guys off to the side. I left a little extra slack. So if we ever decide to change the system up and go fuel pressure regulator up front, we've got plenty of room here to just move the lines and splice them. So nice and clean, all put back together. Let's send it. Well, we've got most of the wiring done over here. So just two wires there we need to connect. The main bundle of wiring is already finished. There was an existing mount here, just put some brackets on it, tighten all that up. Gonna hit it with a little bit of paint later just to make it look nice. That's pretty firm, that's not going anywhere. And well, yeah, just gotta hook up a couple of wires and turn this thing on. So, starting to look like a car. Well, this is gonna be a down and dirty try to start up. Already loaded the bass tune in there. I didn't use the handheld, but you could. It's pretty much just using handheld information. Did the TPS auto set, hooked everything up, put a little bit of coolant in it, and let's see if she'll start. Gotta love Holly, dude. Literally, it's the bass tune that Holly gives you. There's nothing to it. Got it running. Pedal's pretty good. All the numbers are coming up pretty much green. That's looking good. The beautiful part about it is Holly makes it easy, man. Just go here and use your software, see where you're off. It's already making adjustments on its own. I'm making adjustments to get everything right. Give it a couple more minutes. Temperature's good. Nothing's leaking, nothing's coming out. We'll take this girl off for a drive. Not bad, not bad. Got a couple of issues, but not bad. Okay.
Much better.
Say the truth.
Much better.
There you go. Compared to the way it came here, right?
Yes.
Because like you barely made it here last time. So we definitely got to do something with the suspension. The Holly's in, everything's kind of working right. I mean, it's good enough at least to send it home and then get it back and do the upgrades we got to do with some better brakes maybe, and definitely some better suspension. Beltec, if you're listening, you know, hit me up. But yeah, was it worth it?
Yes.
There you go.
Worth the wait.
There you go, folks. And it's her truck. It's not his. It's hers. So there we go. Let's get ready, folks. Zemmy's hitting the streets. Hey man, came in flipping on a wing and a prayer, and it drives up. Gotta love that sound.